Hiya, I'm Carly from Kip McGrath in Carlisle, and today we're looking at division. So earlier on we've had a look at multiplication, addition and subtraction, but today is the turn of division. Now just a quick aside before we get started, when you're working with little ones and dividing, you're obviously going to do that practically, so you would have the number of objects. So say it was 8 and we were dividing by 2, we'd have 8 objects and we would literally put them in 2 separate piles until we ran out of objects, and that would be your number in each pile would be the answer. So that's your practical method when you're starting off with the very, very little ones. Okay, another one is obviously they practice their times tables, so you just count up with them in their times tables till they get to the answer. So there's lots of different methods. These are when you get onto the slightly more complicated division, and this is where parents particularly struggle to explain methods. So this method here is generally called the bus stop method. It has a few other names, but that's the one most people will say. It doesn't actually matter what we call it, okay? But that's probably what most teachers will call it to the children, so it's quite a good one to remember. The idea of why it's a bus stop is because this is meant to be a bus shelter, and the numbers that we're dividing are in the bus shelter, and what we're dividing by is on the outside. And it's really important that our language is correct when we're talking about this, because children will often say that they're doing 3 divided by 369, and they're not. They're doing 369 divided by 3. So they must remember that the number that they're dividing is usually the bigger number, and what they're dividing by is usually the smaller number. Okay, so these are varying levels of difficulty. So the one that we're starting with here is our easiest level of difficulty. It's introducing them to the method, but they're not actually doing any of the carrying within their bus stop. So how many 3s are in 3 is 1, 3s into 6 is 2, and 3s into 9 is 3. Okay, our next level, how many full 2s go into 5? So 2, 4, 6. 6 is too many, 4 is 2 full 2s, and what's left over from 4? 1 to get to 5. 2s into 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 is 6. 12 to 13 is 1, so we've got 1 left over. 2s into 16 is 8. Okay, this one here is our next level up, and this one is going to have a remainder, and we're going to talk at the end about how we can show our remainders. So 2s into 4 goes twice with nothing left over. 2s into 7. 2, 4, 6 is 3, remainder 1. 2s into 17. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 is 8, and remainder 1. Very early on, children will start off writing remainder 1. But actually remainder 1 isn't very useful because it gets them confused because they think it's worth 1, and it doesn't work like that. So a good thing to get them into the habit of is writing it as a fraction. So it's not just a remainder of 1, it's a remainder of 1 over 2. Because it was a 1 divided by that 2, so it's a remainder of a half. Some children will find that quite difficult to understand, and they mustn't write a half, because it's not remainder a half, it is a half. So it's 238 and a half. Okay, so that is one thing they can do, but really they might want to skip that one, and we'll just go on to the slightly more complicated version, but it gets them to the end answer. So if we run out of numbers, we would say to them, okay, let's add on a decimal place and a 0, and we'll carry on our calculation now. We always mirror our decimal place in the question up on our answer, so we're going to put a decimal point in there. And then we had 8 remainder 1, so my remainder just goes on there. 2s into 10 is 5, so that's where we get our half. So 238.5 or a half. Okay. It's no different if children are dividing a decimal. So if the number inside the bus stop is a decimal, it's no different. They just need to remember to line up the decimal point in the answer. So 5s into 3 doesn't go, there's none. And we're going to have a remainder then. Now, children will always think the remainder is either 1, or they might even try and write this number here, but that isn't what the remainder is. The remainder is the 3 because we haven't used it. 5s into 36 is 7, remainder 1. 5s into 15 is 3. So if somebody was sharing £3.65 between 5 people, they'd each get 73p. Okay, there's one more thing that children might come up against in division. So you might have division of decimals. So 33.6 divided by 6. And that one is exactly the same as this. We can just set it out in our method. So 33.6 divided by 6. 3's into 3 doesn't, 6 is into 3 doesn't go. Carry that 3. 6 is into 33 is 5, remainder 3. 6 is into 36 is 6. If you ever, however, have, for example, the decimal on the bottom, so you're dividing by 0.6, that's where it's more complicated, because we can't just put 0.6 on the outside of here because nobody knows how many 0.6 is going to things. So what you would do is encourage them to write it as a fraction, because that is essentially what division is. We've got 336 over 0.6. And then our aim is to get rid of a decimal in the question. So how am I going to get rid of that decimal? Well, I need to times by 10, 100, 1,000, but I need to work out which one. If it's only got one decimal place, I'm going to times by 10. And I do that on the top and the bottom. So I end up with 3360 divided by 6. And that I can do using our usual method. So 3360 divided by 6. Let's find a little bit of space up here. So 3360 divided by 6. How many 6's go into 3? 0, carry the 3. How many 6's go into 33 is 5, remainder 3. 6 into 36 is 6. How many 6's go into 0? And this is one that sometimes trips them up, but there are no 6's in 0, so it's just 0. And another useful thing to remind them is if they get 0560, that 0 isn't worth anything, so our answer is just 560. Okay, if anybody has any questions about our division methods, just pop your questions in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks.